The sky above Devilfall Valley had begun to fracture. Black and purple radiance bled across the heavens, swallowing the clouds and smothering the light, as if the world itself were being dragged into an abyss. Waves of devilish chi surged endlessly, each pulse carrying the weight of annihilation. Beneath that suffocating pressure, even nascent soul cultivators felt their breathing falter. Something had awakened, something that should never have existed within the mortal realm, and once it did escape, was no longer a certainty. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Marquis Nanlong was momentarily startled when he suddenly found himself facing the tiger demon puppets head-on. Nevertheless, his hesitation lasted no more than an instant as he continued his charge without the slightest intention of retreating. The dozen puppets simultaneously flared with cold white light. Their figures blurred chaotically, dissolving into streaks of afterimages as they moved in unison, instantly encircling Marquis Nanlong. In the next heartbeat, claws of condensed light slashed toward him from all directions, sealing off every avenue of escape. Marquis Nanlong's expression darkened. He let out a furious shout, utterly disregarding the puppets as he thrust his fists forward, meeting two of the incoming claws head-on. Two dull explosions rang out. When the luminous claws collided with his fists, both shrouded in dense black chi, they shattered on impact, scattering fragments of light through the air. Yet the puppets showed neither fear nor hesitation. Lacking life-death held no meaning for them, and without magical power to dissipate their forms, remained intact. In a flash of icy radiance, the shattered claws regenerated, and the two puppets immediately resumed their relentless assault. Marquis Nanlong let out a sinister chuckle at the sight. His arms suddenly blurred and vanished, followed by his entire body. The storm of light claws slashed only empty air before two more muffled booms echoed across the battlefield. In the next instant, Marquis Nanlong reappeared outside the encirclement. Each of his arms had pierced straight through the chest of a tiger demon puppet. Though puppets possessed no hearts, to destroy such grievous damage was enough to render them inert, and both constructs collapsed lifelessly to the ground. With overwhelming brute force, Marquis Nanlong crushed Han Li's painstakingly refined puppets as if they were nothing more than fragile toys. Yet these attacks were merely incidental. His true target had always been Han Li, who had yet to recover from the previous blow. Without slowing down, Marquis Nanlong surged past the remaining puppets and appeared before Han Li in the blink of an eye, launching another devastating punch toward him. Still enveloped within his protective light barrier and unable to mobilize his magic power, Han Li stared at the incoming fist with an oddly calm expression, one utterly devoid of panic. Marquis Nanlong was taken aback by this reaction. A flicker of confusion crossed his mind, but before he could grasp its meaning, a rapid series of sharp explosions erupted behind him. Alarmed, he withdrew his fist without hesitation. His body blurred once more, leaving behind a trail of afterimages as he retreated at lightning speed. In the following instant, countless green claws suddenly burst forth, tearing through every single afterimage. Then, amid a flash of eerie green light, a monster covered in green fur and bearing a withered, corpse-like face appeared at the spot where Marquis Nanlong had stood just moments earlier. It was the sovereign devil corpse, which had been lying in ambush beneath the concealment of Han Li's puppets. Marquis Nanlong halted and stared grimly at the tiger demon puppets and the devil corpse that had nearly succeeded in launching a lethal sneak attack. A refined corpse. Upon clearly seeing the devil corpse, Marquis Nanlong cried out in shock. At that moment, the remaining tiger demon puppets swiftly regrouped and clustered around Han Li. Han Li raised both hands, spreading his fingers wide. One hand crackled with dense arcs of flickering lightning, while the other cradled a small sphere of purple flames, quietly burning with terrifying intensity. After preparing all this, Han Li cast an indifferent glance toward Marquis Nanlong, his expression as cold as still water. Marquis Nanlong snorted. Now that Han Li's magic power had recovered, there was no point in continuing to suppress him. What truly unsettled him, however, was the sheer amount of divine Devilbane lightning Han Li had already unleashed, and the fact that he still seemed to have an abundant reserve. If Marquis Nanlong's memory served him correctly, divine Devilbane lightning was extraordinarily lethal to elder devils like himself. Yet treasures capable of producing such lightning were exceedingly rare, and even then, they could only be used once or twice before exhausting their power. Otherwise, how could humanity have been so utterly powerless during the first invasion of the mortal realm by the elder devils? And yet, standing before him was a cultivator who appeared capable of drawing an almost limitless supply of divine Devilbane, lightning from his own body. The ease with which Han Li wielded it was deeply troubling. Even more unsettling was the purple flame held in Han Li's other hand. Though Marquis Nanlong could not identify its origin, his instincts screamed danger the moment it appeared. As for the mechanical puppets, he paid them little heed. They posed no real threat in direct combat and had only caught him off guard initially. The refined corpse was somewhat intriguing, but with cultivation merely at the early nascent soul stage, it was hardly worth fearing. As these thoughts passed through his mind, Marquis Nanlong could not help but recall the two nascent soul cultivators he had fought earlier. Meanwhile, when Ancestor Lingu and the white-clothed woman noticed that Marquis Nanlong and Han Li had temporarily ceased exchanging blows, a chill of dread crept into their hearts. They dared not recklessly command their ancient treasures to attack, and instead ordered them to remain on standby. Ancestor Lingu's ring shrank in size, floating in the air, while emitting a low resonant hum. Suddenly, a string of explosions echoed out. Marquis Nanlong turned toward the sound in surprise. He saw the grey-white sphere of flame rupture in mid-air. From within, a cloud of golden beetles burst forth completely unharmed. As the flames dispersed, the glowing green ghost claw vanished along with them. Marquis Nanlong's expression instantly turned grim. Freed from their confinement, the golden beetle swarm immediately surged toward Han Li. After a brief silence, Marquis Nanlong's face twisted into a savage grin. "I didn't expect your abilities to be so extensive," he said coldly. "Trying to fish out your nascent soul with conventional methods has proven rather troublesome. Since that is the case, I have no choice but to kill you. This body has already reached the end of its usefulness anyway. Its destruction is of no consequence." He took a deep breath. Black devilish chi erupted violently from his body, and the sickening sounds of cracking bones rang out. His figure rapidly expanded, growing more than a meter taller. His neck and shoulders bulged grotesquely, as though something monstrous was about to tear its way out. The moment Han Li saw this, he reacted without hesitation. He swept his arms forward. Several arcs of golden lightning fused together, transforming into a golden python that lunged forward with a deafening roar. From his other hand, a seemingly ordinary ball of purple flame shot out. At the same time, Han Li let out a muffled cry, commanding the gold-devouring beetles to advance. The sovereign devil corpse and the tiger demon puppets remained behind, standing guard against any surprise attacks. Off to the side, Ancestor Lingu and the white-clothed woman exchanged a glance before simultaneously pointing toward their treasures and activating them. A beam of radiant rainbow light shot forth, arriving even faster than Han Li's attacks. The milky white ring expanded to 3 meters in diameter and swept forward, attempting to envelop Marquis Nanlong. Having already suffered from the Elder Devil's bizarre techniques once, they could not allow him another opportunity to succeed, or the consequences would be dire. Marquis Nanlong remained utterly unfazed. The moment the rainbow light touched the black chi shrouding his body, it vanished as if swallowed whole. In the next instant, the golden lightning python, the purple fireball, and the massive white ring struck Marquis Nanlong simultaneously. The gold-devouring beetles lagged slightly behind, but they too were rapidly closing in. Unwilling to endure these attacks head-on, Marquis Nanlong's black chi trembled violently before bursting outward at astonishing speed, carrying his body along with it. A 10-meter-wide sphere of black chi streaked through the air, shielding him completely. His movements were swift and erratic, flickering unpredictably as every incoming attack narrowly missed its mark. Seeing her attacks repeatedly fail, the white-clothed woman gritted her teeth and urged her mirror to fire beam after beam of rainbow light. Yet each one missed. The chase continued for a brief moment. To Han Li's mounting frustration, not a single one of his attacks managed to land, even with his spiritual sense guiding them. Then a voice echoed within Han Li's mind, the monarch of soul divergence. "Youngster, if you have no other killing techniques left, I advise you to flee," he said grimly. Elder devils are vastly different from mortal cultivators. Each one is ruthless, brutal, and exceedingly experienced in battle. Though they enter and leave this realm, none are as vicious as a high-grade elder devil. If he becomes serious, you stand no chance. I still have not completed my final nascent soul puppet, and I have no desire to die alongside you. Han Li did not reply. Instead, a fierce glint appeared in his eyes. With a sudden flick of his sleeves, a clear ringing sound echoed out. Dozens of small golden swords burst forth, each transforming into a foot-long streak of golden light as they spiraled through the air under his command. Expressionless, Han Li struck the sword lights with several spell seals. They trembled violently before erupting into blinding radiance, splitting into over 100 identical copies. Forming an incantation gesture, Han Li shouted, "Go!" The sword lights rang in unison before vanishing from sight. In the blink of an eye, the aureate sword formation had been laid out before him. The monarch of soul divergence yelped in surprise, then chuckled leisurely. "A sword formation. So you still had techniques you hadn't used. In that case, pretend I said nothing earlier. Still, I am quite curious to see what gives you such confidence in this formation." Han Li replied calmly, "Senior will soon find out. If this were the Elder Devil's true body, it would be difficult to say whether the formation could kill him. However, since he is merely possessing a human cultivator's body, I should at least be able to destroy his vessel, provided I do not kill him outright." The monarch of soul divergence laughed bitterly. "Don't boast too much, youngster. Haven't you already experienced the terrifying brute force and vicious devil arts of his possessed body?" Han Li's heart stirred upon hearing the monarch of soul divergence's warning. He asked calmly, "From your tone, it seems Senior has personally encountered elder devils before. I thought you never entered Devilfall Valley." The monarch of soul divergence snorted several times and replied irritably, "Oh, did you not hear me clearly earlier? I had several close friends who entered the valley. Each of them possessed extraordinary abilities, yet even with their combined strength, only one managed to escape alive. Surely that alone is enough to demonstrate the terror of the elder devils." Han Li smiled faintly, about to ask another question, when a thunderous roar suddenly erupted from the distant ball of black chi. In the next moment, a violent storm of wind exploded outward, scattering the devilish chi in all directions and revealing Marquis Nanlong once more. When Ancestor Lingu and the white-clothed woman saw this, their expressions changed drastically, and a chill ran through their blood. Is that still human? Marquis Nanlong now possessed two heads, one in the front of his neck and a smaller one protruding from the back. Both bore vicious, malevolent expressions. From his shoulders extended 4 devilish arms, each so long that they reached below his knees. The front head was covered in dense purple scales, with a white horn several inches long jutting from its forehead. Yet its nose, eyes, and other facial features still faintly resembled Marquis Nanlong's former appearance. The smaller head on his back, however, looked entirely like that of a demon ghost. Though it too bore horns and scales, its appearance was far more grotesque. When its jet-black lips parted, a foot-long black-red tongue unfurled, flicking through the air before retracting like that of a venomous serpent. What was even more terrifying was its gaze. The eyes of the rear head had become narrow slits glowing with cold silver light. Whenever they shifted, they radiated an inhuman unease that gnawed at the soul. Not only his head, but his entire body was now densely covered in purple scales. Each of his 4 elongated arms ended in bone-like claws that gleamed sharply at the fingertips. When brought together, they reflected silver light and looked capable of tearing through metal with ease. Although Ancestor Lingu and the white-clothed woman felt their hearts tremble at the sight of this horrifying transformation, their extensive experience as nascent soul cultivators prevented them from being completely overwhelmed. Seeing that the elder devil remained momentarily still, they pointed toward their treasures and commanded them to attack without hesitation. A beam of radiant rainbow light shot forth, instantly enveloping the elder devil. Delighted Ancestor Linghu seized the opportunity and hastily ordered his massive white ring to descend as well, attempting to trap him completely. The elder devil's front head remained expressionless, as lifeless as a corpse. However, the rear head curled its lips into a sneer. The giant ring flashed as it fell, but before it could seal him inside, the elder devil's 4 arms surged upward, glowing with purple light. They firmly grasped the ring, stopping it dead in its tracks. Ancestor Lingu was horrified. He quickly cast another spell, causing the ring to blaze with light as it struggled to break free. Yet the 4 arms held it fast, as immovable as forged divine metal. The rear head sneered again and spat out a glob of pitch-black liquid. It splashed across the ring, and in the next instant the treasure let out a shrill cry. Its spiritual radiance shattered and flickered violently, tainted by demonic black light. "My Yangfu said ring!" Ancestor Lingu cried out in alarm. The moment the ring lost its brilliance, he felt his mental connection to the treasure severed, and his face instantly turned pale. The elder devil possessed a method to corrupt and destroy ancient treasures. 3 of his arms released their grip on the ring. With the remaining arm, he swung it casually, creating countless after-images as it spun through the air. The smaller head wore a satisfied expression, while the front head spoke in a calm yet mocking tone. "Not bad. Not bad at all. I was just worrying that I lacked suitable treasures. This will suffice for now." At the same time, 2 of his other arms swept behind him, producing a pair of black flags. He also spat out a small black sword, which hovered ominously in mid-air. His final arm clenched into a bare fist. "Huh. Though I possess only a handful of devil-fied cultivator treasures, they will do for the time being." The elder devil smiled sinisterly, because Han Li had been distracted setting up the sword formation. The golden lightning and purple fireball slowed, slightly lagging behind. As for the gold-devouring beetles, they had pursued the elder devil closely, but the moment his transformation finished, they abruptly halted, spiraling fearfully in place. Han Li was shocked. This was the first time he had ever sensed fear through his mental connection with the gold-devouring beetles. Moreover, this 2-headed, 4-armed devilish form reminded him of the sacred provenance plate and of the 3-headed, 6-armed statue upon Master Kangkun's offering table. Han Li could not comprehend what connection these 3 phenomena shared. As for the black flags, he immediately recognized them as the wind-commanding flags once owned by Lu Wei-ying. The small black sword was also familiar. It was one of the treasures excavated from ancient cultivator remains. Somehow the elder devil had corrupted it and bent it to his own use. Yet now was not the time to dwell on such matters. Han Li's goal was clear: provoke the elder devil and lure him into the aureate sword formation. With that thought, Han Li urged the gold-devouring beetles forward and accelerated the divine devilbane lightning and purple fireball. Both of the elder devil's heads burst into laughter at the sight. His neck twisted unnaturally, and with a sickening shift, the positions of the 2 heads abruptly swapped. The smaller head then extended its black-red tongue endlessly in a bizarre, unsettling display. The elder devil stared directly at Han Li's incoming attacks, showing not the slightest intention of evading them. He waved his arms, raising all 3 treasures into the air. Instantly the small sword spell flags and corrupted ring erupted with brilliant black light. The battle between Han Li and the elder devil was about to erupt once more, when suddenly a series of monstrous roars thundered from the distance like the bellowing of ancient titans. The sound was filled with boundless fury and savage intent. so overwhelming that even Ancestor Linghu and the white-clothed woman felt their minds tremble from afar. Han Li's expression changed drastically, and even the two-headed Elder Devil stiffened. In the next instant, the Elder Devil recalled all of his treasures, then shot away in a streak of black light, releasing a shrill screech as he tore through the sky like a bolt of thunder. The direction he fled toward was precisely where the roar had originated. Stunned, Han Li hesitated. He extended a finger, halting the golden lightning beetles and purple flames mid-air. His gaze followed the Elder Devil's retreating figure, his expression shifting repeatedly. If his memory was correct, that roar and the terrifying wave of chi earlier had originated from a marked location on the map of Devilfall Valley. Had something earth-shattering occurred there? The Elder Devil had fled without hesitation and even screamed in response. Could it be another Elder Devil had appeared? As these thoughts surged through his mind, Han Li remained motionless, his expression grave and contemplative. Ancestor Linghu and the white-clothed woman finally relaxed, greatly relieved to see the Elder Devil depart. Ever since the white-clothed woman realized that her status light mirror could no longer restrain the transformed Elder, devil dread had filled her heart. Although Ancestor Linghu felt deep regret over the loss of his precious magic treasure, he was still grateful to have preserved his life. Without Han Li's timely intervention, both he and the great elder of the masked moon sect would have met their end. Originally, the two of them had entered the valley alongside a close friend, but the possessed Marquis Nanlong had drawn out his nascent soul and devoured it. Now that the Elder Devil had fled far away and showed no sign of returning, Ancestor Linghu and the white-clothed woman exchanged glances. After a brief hesitation, they decided to approach Han Li. Having witnessed his astonishing display of power, it felt improper to simply leave without a word. Ancestor Linghu cupped his hands in salute and spoke respectfully. "Fellow Taoist Han, I must thank you for saving my life. Otherwise, I would have surely perished." His gaze drifted toward the tiger demon puppets at Han Li's side and the sovereign devil corpse radiating icy chi. He sighed inwardly, a trace of envy surfacing in his heart. Han Li was still so young, yet he already possessed such a terrifying array of treasures and techniques. His future path of cultivation was beyond measure. His earlier agreement to assist Yellow Maple Valley now seemed unquestionably wise, so long as Han Li stood firm. The sect would likely remain safe from calamity for the next 1,000 years. As for Nangong Wan's senior martial sister, she forced a smile despite their earlier conflict. "Many thanks for fellow Taoist's assistance," she said coolly, her tone detached despite the courtesy. Any lingering thoughts of vengeance had been completely erased. After witnessing Han Li's current abilities, such notions no longer dared to exist. With a casual wave of his arm, Han Li recalled the golden lightning and other items back into his body and sleeve. He then spoke calmly. "I did not save you out of kindness. I was merely protecting myself. Now then, what do you intend to do? Would you be interested in taking a look in that direction?" Ancestor Linghu immediately shook his head. Fellow Taoist Han must be joking. That existence is far too terrifying. Only a late-stage nascent soul cultivator could contend with it. "We will not be following." The white-clothed woman said nothing, but she too shook her head. "Very well." Han Li nodded. "Although I am curious, it would be too dangerous for me to go alone. Let us part ways here." He felt a trace of disappointment. Had these two nascent soul cultivators agreed to accompany him, he truly would have gone to investigate. However, his curiosity was not enough to risk his life alone. With that thought, Han Li turned and stared toward the direction of the distant howl. After a short while, his expression suddenly grew heavy. Seeing this, Ancestor Linghu's heart skipped a beat. He hastily asked, "Has something happened?" Ancestor Linghu followed Han Li's gaze and saw dazzling lights flashing in the distance. Purple and black radiance interwove endlessly, blotting out nearly half the sky. Amidst this violent display, 100-meter-wide emerald-green cloud slowly rose, its interior filled with countless shimmering lights that revolved at a sluggish pace. Whenever those lights intertwined within the cloud, the air trembled violently, accompanied by a faintly distant howl that echoed like a ghostly lament. The strange black-purple radiance carried waves of raging devilish chi that flooded the heavens. This aura was all too familiar to the three. It was identical to the devilish chi released by Marquis Nanlong's possessed body after its transformation. Yet now that same aura was being unleashed at full force from afar, pressing down like an invisible mountain. What terrified Ancestor Lingu even more was the fact that the black-purple radiance and the emerald cloud were rapidly advancing in their direction. At this speed, they would soon arrive. Bloated corpse poison. The white-clothed woman's face lit up as recognition struck. That green cloud is formed from Wei Wuya's poison techniques. I've seen him use it before. Any cultivator who touches it will die without exception. Upon hearing this, Han Li and Ancestor Linghu exchanged glances, their expressions turning grave. A deep, unspoken dread lurked within their eyes. Although the green poison cloud was formidable, it was clearly inferior to the terrifying black-purple radiance. Could it be that Wei Wuya's opponent was already comparable to a late nascent soul cultivator? Yet judging from the overwhelming aura alone, this presence was certainly not the elder devil soul that had possessed Marquis Nanlong. Seeing the expressions of the two men, the white-clothed woman realized the implications as well. Her face darkened. Should we? She hesitated, about to propose something, when an icy spiritual sense suddenly swept past the three of them, cutting her off mid-sentence. Han Li's heart trembled. Ancestor Lingu's complexion turned especially unsightly. After a brief silence, Han Li spoke coldly. "We need to decide now. If we delay any longer, we'll miss our chance. The elder devil we were just fighting has already rushed over there. No matter how profound Wei Wuya's cultivation may be, he'll soon be overwhelmed. So will the two of you assist him? Or do you plan to flee now and wait for those monsters to hunt you down after Wei Wuya falls?" Before speaking, Han Li had swept his spiritual sense toward the black-purple radiance. However, violent fluctuations of spiritual qi blocked his perception entirely, leaving him unable to see anything beyond. His heart sank. This battle had already surpassed his current level. Ancestor Lingu and the white-clothed woman could only look at each other in dismay. If possible, the two of them would much rather flee for their lives than gamble everything in another clash with an elder devil. Yet Han Li's words struck true. If Wei Wuya fell, their chances of escaping Devilfall Valley were virtually non-existent. They were already too deep within it. Worse still, if Wei Wuya survived, he would inevitably learn that they had stood aside without offering aid. As fellow cultivators of the Nine Nations Union, such behavior would invite endless trouble. And as grand elders of their respective sects, the consequences could be catastrophic for the Masked Moon sect and Yellow Maple Valley alike. Resentful and unwilling, yet unable to retreat, the two hesitated painfully. For the sake of their sects, they would have to stake their lives in this desperate struggle. Han Li let out a bitter chuckle inwardly. With his hands clasped behind his back, he silently watched the black-purple radiance in the sky, saying nothing. Ancestor Lingu frowned, sighing heavily to himself. At last he spoke. "Among us fellow Taoist, Han possesses the greatest strength. What do you plan to do?" "Me?" Han Li smiled faintly. Haha. He did not answer immediately. Seeing this, Ancestor Lingu gave a wry chuckle and inwardly cursed Han Li's craftiness. If Han Li suggested retreat, the three could leave at once. And if Wei Wuya later investigated, he and the white-clothed woman could simply place the blame on Han Li. As Ancestor Lingu struggled to resolve this awkward predicament, Han Li suddenly exclaimed, "Yi, there are other cultivators nearby." But that's hardly surprising. Such a commotion would draw cultivators from thousands of kilometers away. Ancestor Lingu and the white-clothed woman hurriedly followed Han Li's gaze. On the far side of the battlefield, a group of cultivators was rapidly flying toward the green cloud and the strange radiance. How could it be them? Why would they come to such a dangerous place? Han Li swept his spiritual sense toward the group and was immediately shaken. He recognized two of the three cultivators. One was Taoist Heaven Crystal, with whom he had traded before. Following behind him were two puppets with ferocious appearances. Both scarred and battered, one of them was even missing an arm. The second familiar figure was a silver-haired old man, his senior martial brother Cheng. As for the final person, it was the unfamiliar old cultivator who had entered the valley together with senior martial brother Cheng. The third cultivator, who should have been accompanying them, was nowhere to be seen. Presumably, something unfortunate had already occurred. Upon recognizing them, Han Li's expression turned gloomy. Clearly, these cultivators had been lured by the fearsome battle. They likely believed it to be a clash between cultivators over a rare treasure. Had they known that soul-devouring devils were involved instead, they would have fled without hesitation. Because they were too far away, Han Li couldn't reach them with his spiritual sense to warn them. In the blink of an eye, they drew closer to the battlefield. Wei Wuya would surely seize the opportunity to drag them into the fray, forcing them to share the pressure and placing their lives in grave danger. Han Li cared little for the others, but senior martial brother Cheng had once shown him kindness at the Drifting Cloud sect. He could not stand by and watch him perish. It seemed he had no choice but to intervene. Helplessly, Han Li abandoned his original plan. He had intended to observe the battle's outcome before deciding whether to involve himself or quietly retreat. If Wei Wuya was only at a slight disadvantage, Han Li would naturally join the fight. After all, as a fellow human cultivator, he did not wish to see Devilfall Valley turned into a slaughterhouse where cultivators' souls were devoured. But if Wei Wuya was completely overwhelmed, Han Li would retreat without hesitation, preserving his own life. In that case, disaster would befall every cultivator in the valley. Entities capable of overpowering a late nascent soul cultivator were far beyond his ability to contend with, yet escape would still be possible. Now, however, with senior martial brother Cheng heading straight toward the danger, Han Li's resolve wavered. Gritting his teeth, he steeled himself to step into the chaos. If matters truly turned dire, he could still rely on the blood shadow evasion technique to flee. But he would need to choose his direction carefully. One misstep, and he could plunge straight into a spatial tear. This technique could only be used as a final resort. With his decision made, Han Li turned to Ancestor Lingu and the white-clothed woman. Since other fellow Taoists are already heading over to assist against those soul-devouring devils, I won't remain idle. No matter what you decide, I'll be leaving first. After a brief pause, he added calmly, yet with unmistakable warning, given how close you two are to the battlefield, I suspect fellow Taoist Wei has already noticed you. It may become awkward for your future relations if you choose not to join. With that, Han Li transformed into a streak of azure light and shot toward the battlefield. The two remaining nascent soul cultivators stood rooted in place, speechless. As they hesitated, the clash between the black-purple radiance and the green mist intensified violently. Han Li's words rang true at a distance of merely 5 kilometers. Even a casual sweep of Wei Wuya's spiritual sense would easily uncover them. Ancestor Lingu stroked his beard and forced a bitter smile. Let's go. Fellow Taoist Han is right. As human cultivators, it is our duty to slay these devils. The white-clothed woman's face darkened. After weighing the stakes, she could only nod. With multiple cultivators attacking simultaneously, she might yet survive. Clinging to that hope, the two gathered their courage and flew toward the battlefield. Unbeknownst to them, 50 kilometers behind, the Grand Elder of the controlling spirit sect Dongmen II was advancing with 3 of his sect's disciples. Of the 5 nascent soul cultivators created through the elemental spirit nascence, only 3 remained. The other 2 had perished to a spatial tear and a deadly restriction. Yet Dongmen II showed not the slightest trace of sorrow. Instead, his gaze burned with excitement as he stared toward the horizon. The violent spiritual chi fluctuations could be clearly felt even from 50 kilometers away. In his eyes, this was most likely a battle over treasure, and he fully intended to take advantage of the chaos. Even farther away, Elder Zhong of the Ghost Spirit sect advanced with his disciples, his expression dark and oppressive. Though he had carefully planned their route through Devilfall Valley, 2 of his disciples had still perished to wandering spatial tears. Worse still, the primary objective of their perilous journey, the spirit-kindled fruits, had been stolen by another, nearly driving him mad with rage. Those fruits were essential for his breakthrough to the late nascent soul stage. The cuts on the spirit-kindled tree had been fresh. The thief must have refined them into medicine immediately and could not have gone far. Acting on this belief, Elder Zhong had dispatched his disciples to search only to return empty-handed days later. Just as Elder Zhong was about to withdraw in dejection, terrifying waves of qi surged forth, nearly obliterating them. Fortunately, he possessed a top-grade ancient defensive treasure, allowing them to survive unscathed. Now, as another astonishing fluctuation of spiritual qi erupted in the distance, Elder Zhong's eyes gleamed sharply. He immediately recalled the cultivator who had stolen the spirit-kindled fruits and surged forward with his disciples, impatience and killing intent burning fiercely within his heart. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.